With us reaching roughly the halfway mark for the Yuzuha and Miyabi banners, many players are stuck asking the same question. Should I pull now or wait for Alice? And with Alice's banner just around the corner, answering these questions is incredibly important. As a result, in today's video, we're putting Yuzuha, Miyabi, and Alice head to head to figure out which one is truly worth your pulls, and whether you're planning to go in on one character, split between two, somehow try to get three, or are curious about seed. This video will cover everything you need to know before making this decision. As always though, if you found today's video helpful, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now let's take a quick detour to talk about today's sponsor, Bootdev, and just to be clear, I've actually been using the platform myself recently. At first, I wasn't really sure how much it would help, especially since coding can feel pretty overwhelming when you're just getting started, but to my surprise, Bootdev turned out to be one of the few platforms that actually kept me engaged. The backend development paths, specifically in Python and Go, are built around a simple but pretty effective idea, which is, well, you learn the best by doing. Right from the start, you're writing real code and building actual projects rather than just watching videos, lectures, or reading through dry explanations, which can often bore people. As a result, the hands-on approach really does make a difference, and with this, the layout is clean, the pacing is tight, and I never felt dragged down by walls of text or pointless filter. That's not even mentioning all the framing, theming, and even some of the appealing different coding aspects that they have, and that's not even accounting for the lessons they create thematically to video games, making it much more understandable both for people who play games and also for those that want to understand the concept in actuality. If that sounds like something you'd want to try, head over to Bootdev and check out the courses for free, and if you decide to commit, use my code KANA to get 25% off your entire first year when you go with the annual plan. As a quick disclaimer, you of course can pull whoever you'd like, but today's video will have clearly laid out reasons for why you may lean towards one choice or another. For example, Yuzuha may seem more appealing because many of the current or upcoming bosses are weak to physical damage, but on a similar note, if you don't have a well-built physical DPS, this means you'll have a much harder time beating said physical bosses. For that reason alone, pulling for Alice can actually make things much easier, but ultimately, these considerations/factors also need context and understanding surrounding them. To explain what I mean, not having a well-built DPS does not mean you need to pull for Alice, and in fact, because characters like Piper and Jane are performing decently at the moment, you could argue that Alice has even less value if your only goal is to reach 20,000 points or simply receive all rewards from S-rank Shiyu and 9-star Deadly Assault. But in short, there's a lot more here to consider than you'd think. However, truthfully, I could make a 6,000 hour video considering every single possibility and angle associated with every pro and con I'm about to discuss. However, my goal today is to give you the most reasonable and fair take, even if I fall short in some regards. As an apology in advance, some of these takes or findings may feel a bit biased in some regard, but enough with the stalling, let's start by talking about Miyabi. Now regarding Miyabi's pros, she's definitely one of the easiest characters to play of this list, and she doesn't need to be played with any specific team or character. She works in most lineups. To add to this, her best teams often include non-limiteds like Lycon or Sokaku, and she can freeze enemies, which can then be used to extend stun windows, which is really overpowered. Now she isn't just one of the easier DPSs to play, however, she's also easily the best DPS by far, and to add to this, her dodge is extremely powerful for bosses that have very aggressive attack patterns or that perform long inescapable attack sequences that you need to dodge, like with Geppetto's curtain mechanic. Now for her cons, she does need her signature or else she takes a massive loss to her DPS, and to add to this, not having her signature is a noticeable setback as hitting the crit rate threshold for her passive becomes much harder without it. For context, her signature is also the only anomaly W engine with crit rate main stat, meaning that if you want an easy and reliable source of crit rate from the W engine slot, you're essentially forced to either pull for this or use an attack agent's W engine as a workaround. Now, although this is an option, as an added loss to doing this, Miyabi cannot use the passive effects of these attack W engines because, well, she's not an attack agent. Beyond this, ZenlessZoneZero has also designed several fights at this point that are designed specifically to counter/prevent Miyabi from being used effectively, and this is especially the case with some bosses not being able to be frozen. Another flaw that she suffers from is that freezing bosses to extend stun duration is something that will require manual chain attacks, and this concept can be less comfortable for the average player, especially if you haven't practiced it before. Now finally, Miyabi's best teams in the form of Miyabi, Lycon, Sokaku can also be challenging to play, and this does honestly affect whether or not you should pull for Miyabi. But with this, let's now talk about Miyabi and whether her banner is worth pulling on. Now regarding her pros and cons, there were some strengths and flaws within these that stand out more than others. For example, the ease of play is a very highly sought after feature in most characters nowadays for ZenlessZoneZero, and that's because other agents like ZenlessZoneZero Ambi, Haramasa, and even the likes of Evelyn at times could feel slightly more taxing to play. Now, this isn't to say that ease of play is the most important factor, as easier to play characters do exist, but what's equally relevant in a game like Zenless is just how much damage they deal. This is honestly the main selling point of Miyabi for most meta-following / sweaty players, and with this, she still remains at the top of damage charts and clear times, regardless if it's been more than half a year since her release. Now, although it's obvious that Miyabi can be worth it for your account, ignoring the flaws associated with her is still a bad idea, obviously. Even though there are jokes about how Miyabi can bypass ice resistance at times, the Zenless devs' recent agenda to seemingly push Miyabi out of being the only character you need is actually very real. The recently released Miasma Priest has increased anomaly buildup resistance, it also has ice-specific resistance, and even incentivizes you to just take Ishuen instead of Miyabi with its Miasmic Shield. But additionally, for only the second time ever, the next / current Deadly Assault rotation has no Ice Week boss. Now, while this doesn't necessarily mean they'll strictly move away from using Ice and Deadly Assault, the added boss list does mean that Zenless has more options and may not include Ice in every rotation going forward, and thereby decrease Miyabi's efficiency. Additionally, Miyabi's insane DPS is majorly influenced by her ability to freeze, and with her best team freezing as a core mechanic, playing the absolute best team or optimally with Miyabi can actually be difficult at times, especially if you aren't used to manual chain attacks or timing when to freeze bosses. Now let's talk about Alice and her pros. First, she appears to deal a respectable amount of physical anomaly. Second, she looks to pair amazingly with the recently released Yuzuha, since Yuzuha buffs both anomalies and also makes it easier to fill the anomaly meter since both agents are physical. But finally, she's also incredibly flashy. Now, for her cons, she doesn't appear to be super different when compared to someone like Jane, and this, alongside being the third physical anomaly agent, really lessens her value. To add to this, since other characters already fill similar functions, her presence on a team doesn't really stand out, at least not purely based on her role alone. And now, like with Miyabi, let's discuss Alice's banner and its value. When accounting for Alice's pros and cons, there isn't necessarily too much to go over since she hasn't released on live yet, but from what we've seen in game and from the 2.1 live stream, Alice is a physical anomaly DPS who does appear to benefit greatly from being paired with Yuzuha. Now, even before we talk numbers or whether her DPS can compare to someone like Miyabi, the previously mentioned role overlap between Jane and Alice really does hurt Alice's pull value. Now, of course, if you like Alice or if you like Jane's design specifically, this won't matter to you, but for those curious about whether Alice will provide a unique experience completely separate from Jane, the answer is yes, and also no. Are there differences in how Alice deals damage? Yes, she does appear to be less reliant on her 5-hit basic attack combo compared to Jane, and yes, filling up the anomaly bar with just her basic attacks do feel more difficult compared to Jane as well. However, in general, the gameplay goal and role of Jane / Alice remain the same. Deal physical anomaly damage as a primarily on-field DPS, and also pair her with other supportive characters like Vivian, Yuzuha. You get the idea. Now, because of this, it's honestly difficult to advocate for pulling on Alice's banner. However, of course, once Alice actually releases, we'll have more information about how she plays / where she excels. That said, unless Zenless specifically releases a new boss that she's amazing at fighting, Alice can potentially at best deal more damage than Jane, and otherwise perform decently / comparatively as another physical DPS if you don't have access to Jane or just don't want to play Piper. As a final note, while the question of whether each new character is Miyabi level continues to come up, Alice is simply a character we haven't seen enough of yet in order to make that call with confidence. In addition to this, it's also too early to definitively say where she stands in the overall meta too, but despite all this, as with all characters in ZenlessZoneZero, enemy attributes matter a lot, and at the very least, you can be certain that Alice will not outperform Miyabi when it comes to fighting Ice Week enemies, as again, Miyabi is just too OP when fighting them. Now let's talk about Yuzuha and her pros. To start, she is easily the best anomaly support in the game, and compared to some other supports, she is very easy to play. In addition to this, she also has great W engine options and isn't held back by not having her signature, and ultimately, guys, her summer outfit does look amazing. Now, as a con, she can feel kind of weird to play at times because her teams feel like they're overcapping an anomaly buildup in most cases, and in those scenarios, it kind of feels like she's waiting or stalling or just fighting the anomaly cooldowns, which is very uncomfortable to be honest. Now, she also doesn't buff attack / rupture agents nearly as well as Astra Yao does. Truthfully, that doesn't seem to be the goal of her design really at all. But now let's talk about Yuzuha's banner and actually break things down a bit more specifically. When considering Yuzuha's pros and cons, there are a few things that you should know. Yuzuha is currently the best anomaly support in the game and otherwise still a decent option for anyone running attack-based teams. As As previously mentioned, she is also extremely easy to play, has strong W engine flexibility, and her not relying on her signature is actually a very big convincing factor for those of you considering her. However, much like Miyabi, these factors alone already make Yuzuha an incredibly impressive and powerful support. That said, there are a few additional points that you need to consider. One valid concern is that she often ends up fighting against anomaly cooldowns, which I cannot stress enough does make it feel awkward to play at times, especially when her strong anomaly application ends up outpacing the game's internal timers. On top of this, unlike Astra, Yuzuha also tends to struggle in the early stages of combat, particularly when the stage doesn't give you energy or when energy hasn't been built up on Yuzuha to start. Now, while Astra can use her EX special immediately regardless of her energy, Yuzuha does actually have to wait or spend time on field, making the opening moments of some fights feel just a bit clunkier in comparison. Now, of course, this is a small difference in flow and usability and does end up going away as combat continues, but it is noticeable, especially for those of you farming. Even so, for players looking to improve the overall performance of any anomaly character on your account, Yuzuha is one of the best long-term picks that you can make right now. Regardless if you're someone who's already pulled for Astra or even if you're considering skipping Alice, Yuzuha by herself is simply just that good. Hear me out. On paper, pulling for all three in a whale type option may sound like a possible great idea if you want to ensure future success on your account, and you know what, if you manage to win enough 50-50s and skip out on the W engines, it might even be doable. But in reality, this approach is littered with way more issues than you'd think. Both Miyabi and very likely Alice will rely on their signature W engines to reach their full potential, and without them, their damage does take a significant hit. This means that to properly build all three characters, you're likely looking at 5 different gambles that you'd have to win. For clarity's sake, this means that you'd not only need to win 3 50-50s, but you'd also need to win 2 75-25s. Even after all this, if you wanted to potentially skip on the W engines and save money, you're still potentially spending up to $900 for just these 3 characters alone. Now, at the end of the day, this is simply just not an option for the average ZenlessZoneZero player. This kind of all-in strategy is reserved for players who are looking to fully deck out their account in one go and probably don't even look at how much a pity costs. As a result, in best case scenarios, this is something that you could argue re-rolling an account for, but ultimately this is way less ideal or even reasonable for the everyday player. If you want my honest recommendation on which of these characters you should prioritize though, it really comes down to who you have already on your account. If you've already pulled for either Yuzuha or Miyabi, I'd seriously consider going for the one you're missing, and this is because the synergy between the two is actually just too insane to ignore. Additionally, having both allows you to use some of the most powerful team compositions in the game, but if you don't have any of the 3, Alice, Yuzuha, or Miyabi, and you're lacking other limited anomaly agents, Miyabi is genuinely some of the highest impact you can gain from just pulling on a single banner. She gives you access to top tier damage right away, and in most cases, she'll be one of the easiest characters for you to pick up and learn. For players who already have both Yuzuha and Miyabi and are wondering if Alice is worth it, I'd say there's a very good chance she isn't a must pull, but we'll have to wait and see how she performs when she releases on the live servers. Finally, if you're a new player watching this to figure out who to pull, Miyabi is the safest bet by far. She's the best DPS in the game, she's easy to build and play, and she'll carry you into endgame content without much trouble. However, if you're a new player who may end up pulling multiple characters in the future, there is a decent chance that Yuzuha will work out or buff said characters in a meaningful way in the future. Now, originally this video was made to end here, but then Zenless decided to tease Seed. However, since I'm editing this in post to talk about her, I do have some thoughts about her reveal. First, with them teasing Seed, there's a good chance that another character will be teased tomorrow after this video has been published. While I can't speak to that character, I do have some thoughts on Seed as they've revealed her role and attribute. Now, again, although we don't know much about her role as an electric attack agent from the Oval Squad does place her in a similar uncomfortable position to that of Alice. Haramasa and Ambi are both electric DPSs that in theory would fill the same role as Seed, given that all 3 are electric attack agents, and like with Alice, Jane, and Piper, you could easily argue that you may not need someone like Seed. However, as we haven't seen Seed's kit whatsoever, it's safe to say that we should wait and see before judging or making any hard calls, as she could offer something unique that no other character in the game does. To wrap things up though, each of these characters brings something valuable to the table, but the right pick really depends on your own account and your goals. As always, feel free to make your own choices and do research for what you consider to be worth it, but that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Thanks again for watching, stay safe, stay healthy, good night.